Hello, my loves, and welcome to the Feminine Legacy Podcast. This is your host, Jacqueline Hyacinth. Today, I'm excited to bring on a sister and a beautiful guest, Jonita Dsouza, and she is a self-leadership mentor, and she helps women who are suffering from burnout, lack of authentic expression, body love issues. She just really supports them using her Taoist traditions, the shamanic traditions, to restore and connect them back to their feminine essence and yeah, bringing them to living more fulfilled and nurtured lives. So thank you so much for joining us.
Such a pleasure. Thank you, Jacqueline, for having me. And I'm so excited to co-create this space with you, to dive into some magical conversation, and let's see what comes out of this. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for hearing the call. So we just came through the autumn equinox. And so this is a time of like moving into a different space, a different state of consciousness collectively, depending upon where you live in the world. But for those of us that are here in the Northern Hemisphere, we're just moving into autumn, while those in the Southern Hemisphere are moving into the South. So this is a time of deep reflection and change. And so it felt really beautiful to bring you in to speak to the power of the dark feminine and this connection that we can use, particularly all the time, right, for us, but particularly this time. What a beautiful opening and welcoming time as we move into autumn to start to come into deeper relationship with her, with that terrain. So let's dive in. Where should we start?
Where do we start?
So tell me about your relationship with the dark feminine, or a little bit about how your journey brought you to returning to her.
Yeah, this is a good point to start. I would say thank you for such a beautiful introduction. And I must go back a little bit to
Wow.
share a little bit about me that this was never supposed to be or meant for me or destined in to the Jonita that was in 2005, standing and looking at her life. This was never in the picture. And I come from India, and I, like every other Indian girl, I would say, is like taught to study hard, work hard, to get a job and have a financial security and all of that. And I became an IT engineer, and that was my life. I was an IT engineer. My life was coding and logic and binary. I need to have plans. I need to be controlled. I need to have the control, not to be control. And that was my life before I started doing this work. And I, since coming from India, the goddess culture was very much in me, in my surroundings, in my environment, in the life as rituals that I would notice and observe, participate in, but it never felt really true and real for me. And the goddess Kali, Kali Ma, as they say, she is a very popular goddess in India, and a very sincerely cherished and wholeheartedly, I would say, prayed by many, even men, and many are afraid of this power that Kali brings. And Kali, if you translate, it translates from Sanskrit to English as the Black Woman. And I always feared her because she looked scary. And I was like, okay, out of all the goddesses, she's the most ugly looking, she's the most angry looking, she's the most scary looking. Let's not even go that way. So that was my life. And when I started working with the dark feminine archetypes, sorry, the divine feminine archetypes through my journey of the Black night of the soul, I would say, what happened was that I encountered a lot of anger, and I encountered a lot of sadness, frustration. And that made me question my sanity, because somehow I had imagined and I had reached out to this one particular mentor because I was in a very dire strait in my life at that time. And I thought that working with this woman, I would gain something, some hope, some inspiration, some light, that will bring me out of my situation at that time. I was dealing with some grief and depression at that time. And the more we started working, what I noticed was more anger coming up, more frustration coming up, and I would feel good and I would feel lighthearted. And I was thinking that, yeah, this is spirituality, love and light and happiness and bliss. But then there will be moments that I would feel more angry, and when you are more aware of things, you feel more sensitive to things around you. So it's I began to think that something was wrong with me because I couldn't be happy all the time despite doing so much of the healing work. I still have a lot of anger in me despite doing a lot of healing work. I still did not know how to deal with my fears, my struggles, and they will keep coming back to me.
Mhm.
And I thought something was wrong with me and something was wrong with my healing journey.
Yeah.
So I ignored that in one side and I kept working. With my work was born and everything was fine. It was 2017 in particular, where once again I was in dark night of the soul moment, I would say. Well, I always wonder, dark night of the soul. Do our souls have dark night? I think it's our human self, right? So I was I was in this point where it was the darkest point at that time, 2017, particularly. And my business was working really well. It started flourishing as a result of me sharing my work and being authentic in the feminine energy field. And it was a new topic then, like 2007, 8, 15, 2015. But then 2017, I was having a good business and clients were having good experiences, there were testimonials and stuff, but my personal life was falling apart. And I had some difficulties in my marriage at the time, which really shattered me because most of my clients were coming to learn about relationships and their femininity and sensuality and sacred sexuality. And there I was with my life, with my love life, with my romantic life falling apart. And I felt like an imposter. And I remember it was this particular Saturday, which was the Saturday after the Good Friday in that year of 2017. And that was when I was doing my practices, but I was crying and I was feeling hopeless because I didn't want to do this work anymore because I felt like I'm a failure. Why is this happening to me? And amongst all of these kind of questions, I had this visceral experience of Mary Magdalene coming to me. And this was something really new to me because I had not worked with her at the time, I would say. And somehow I felt this presence and she held me, and there was a knowing in my body regarding the dark feminine. And I started writing, and it was really clear. And she started speaking to me that we always talk about the death and the rebirth. We are here. There was this Good Friday, the death, and then there will be the Sunday, the resurrection. But right now, you are here in the space in between, the void, the darkness, and I'm here to hold you. And the entire channeling of the dark feminine came to me, and I started writing, and it made me realize that, wow, I'm in this dark place, but this dark place is safe.
Mhm.
And I feel held. And there is no more going down. Here I am at the bottom anyways. But then this place is of pure love. Like I really felt embraced in my mother's womb.
Mhm.
And I couldn't understand this feeling. And when I started reading next day about what all I wrote, because I was in a state of like, what
Yeah.
is happening? So let me just leave this. But next day when I returned to my notes, I realized how I am called to take this forward, to take this concept of dark feminine forward. And so that my work with dark feminine pretty much came out of that moment in time, in experience. And and what was given to me was very different to what you would see a lot around, that is talking about dark feminine related to a lot of shadow work, looking into our shadows. But what I had been given at the time through this channeling experience was to take the concept of dark feminine as the places where I have not owned myself, to
Mm.
the darkness where I have repressed my own truth, to the places where I have been my own oppressor.
Yeah.
And the work began from there. And that's how this work unfolded for me.
Mm. I love it. Thank you for that. I'm like reliving my own memories of, of how that happens. And yeah, it's such as you said, the holding.
Mm.
Oh, it's like there's nowhere to go. And it's like you're no longer trying to escape either. It's like you finally, something inside of you gives way, and then you're able to actually just be contained in that darkness. And as you said, there's a lot of discrepancies around whether or not that shadow, like that black light, that
Mm.
eminence that's called forth when the women are ready, right? When we are ready, it's like our own initiation into the greater depths of our own being. It's so profound. And oh, I wish it for every woman because it's like, for me, it feels like the literal psychological transfiguration, right?
Exactly.
Into
Mhm.
your own, the language that's coming is feminine Christ. It's like it's really, really accessing those deeper expressions and fullness of our psyche that has been shut out in this crazy ass world
Uh,
that we live in.
Absolutely. And it was a very humbling experience because um, I was no longer called to look into places where things are wrong with me or things are going wrong with me, but instead looking at places where I am doing wrong to myself. And we always know this in the back of our heads, and this voice is always speaking to us that that decision, that we should do this or we shouldn't do that, and that lifestyle change, that habit, that connection, that phone call, like it's always there, but we are afraid to respond to that voice. And so it really required from there on bringing realignment and changing a lot of ways I was living, and really course correcting myself, like into that integrity pillar, like where I was not in my integrity. So it also helped me to work with my inner masculine,
Mhm.
because I had to call in that stability and safety and security inside of me and then course correct. So for me, the work has been pretty much, the dark feminine work has been to looking into places where we are repressing our own power. And then this power we are afraid of. But then this power is not the power that we've been taught.
No, it's not.
Like, it's not the power that we've been taught, but this is the power which is related to our potentiality, and which is related to our freedom, and which is deeply, deeply rooted in love and the highest good. And
Mhm.
this is scary for all of us women because we don't know what to do with power. Like,
Yeah.
we have not been taught. So no wonder we don't want to do this work unconsciously, right?
Mm. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
So it's so I just feel like the emptiness of the container, and it's so fulfilling because you start to become full with more of who you actually are. And
Mm.
it's like a lot of it just starts to disintegrate into what I'm seeing right now. It's like piles of soot, right? You've like created these lives, these ideas, these masks, these personifications, and then suddenly you're in the cauldron and it's like there's nothing but the truth. There's nothing but the realities that you yourself created.
Mhm. Mhm.
So being able to be with that and face ourselves and because no one's taught us and we don't have models, right, of necessarily our mothers or our grandmothers speaking about these things, it's like, it can be quite ambiguous. Like, is it safe? Is it okay?
Yeah, that's true. And we don't like the word dark
Yeah.
because it's, again, that's one of the things that we have been conditioned against. And when I had this epiphany, and I had my notes, and I was like, okay, I really know that how I can take this forward. I have ideas, I'm going to share about this. And I started talking about this online on Facebook in some of the groups that I was at the time, and I was banned. And which was really, really surprising to me,
Wow.
because I thought I was in this light workers groups, and I was sharing about dark feminine. So I came across a lot of mixed responses, and which one of them was this, that I was shut down, and many of my friends were like, okay, don't talk about this topic because it's going to take your work into some different light and into some black magic or witchcraft or against the light forces. So I had this kind of reaction which really confused me, but I was really sure about my knowing and my experience, and it did not feel black magic or witchcraft or anything against the light. In fact, it was the pure light in the dark. So I was really confused that what am I supposed to do? I started doing a lot of research and working around how ancients worked with this concept of darkness, and it was there all the time. It was there, and it is still there. Ancients from around the globe revered this dark aspect, and considered it very potent in all the civilizations. If we look, the Yeshua um, meditated in the dark. The Buddha also meditated in the dark. You see all those shamanic traditions, all the plant medicines, they happen in the dark. They wait for the night. All the dark goddesses, they are something to the psyche, right? And on the Egypt pyramids, that you enter the dark. And there are so many proofs. The more you look, the more you can find, and that kind of like gave me the strength to go back to this environment and like speak back, like, hey, but look, it's been always there. And when I started learning more about the Yeshua tradition, I realized that he called it the black light, which you also mentioned, and I was like, wow, she speaks my language. Yeah, so it was always there, but yes, we are afraid about the concept of dark. We don't like it, and even in spiritual communities. And then when I started doing dark feminine retreats in Glastonbury, and which was really interesting, because as soon as I put this out in the world, I was shunned down from some communities. But then some women reached out to me that, I feel it, I want to join you. Let's do something together. And that's when I started my first dark feminine retreat. So I started doing that. But when the owners in of the retreat, they found out that I was doing the dark feminine work, they were petrified. They wanted me to just pack my bags and go. And it was literally 1 hour before the participants were arriving.
Wow.
So there were so many obstacles around it. And I feel that it only made me go deeper into this knowing and understanding, and how I can bring this message forth in a way that feels safe for more people, for different communities as well. So yeah, that's been a real challenge, but I see more and more conversation around it happening these days, and here we are. So I'm so happy about it.
I love that. And I have found that in making peace and restoring these aspects within us and being able to speak to it, there's two pieces I actually want to talk about here. But one of them is because she's so deeply misunderstood, and because of the good girl and this conditioning in our society, this polarity has really distorted our understanding of what it means to be a woman, what it means to, our relationship to death, our relationship to life, and our relationship to being able to feel and to have the adept and the capacity to experience more consciousness and more than what the mainstream has allowed in its programming. I
Yeah,
want to almost say configuration. And then those things that we face when we are coming into the work, in the work with the deep feminine, the dark feminine, these are the things that we've been confronted with before,
yeah.
right? Where people turned us away, the rejection, like all of this is what we've experienced in other lifetimes. It's actually being regurgitated for healing and release, but we have to
Mm.
face it in this like 3D muggle world.
Exactly.
And it's not easy. Those initiations are intense. So thank you for sharing that. It's so tender when we're experiencing that and like trying to, you know, reassemble ourselves and also being interfacing with the world. It's really, really can be very intense and very volatile.
Yeah, and I think it all happens at the right time, and that's how I felt. Because as I said, it was a humbling journey because I was so judgmental about the dark, my own darkness,
Yeah.
right? And in the beginning I was so judgmental about this, and I was then facing something very similar on the outside because people in general do not know much about it. So instead of just cutting them off or judging them back, I had to learn how to coexist and bring this co-creation. And if we really see, as women, we are part of the dark. We go into the dark. We are biologically made. We are cyclic. The feminine, the yin is the dark. We go into dark times. If we are bleeding, we have our dark moon times. We have the cycles of the earth. We have the cycles of the moon. All of it is related, and it has very important place for darkness
Mhm.
and as a source of creation and healing. And when you put these pieces together, people then understand, because then there is resonance. We feel, we understand. So at that time, I did not have much of my own experience, but today I can sit with you and we can talk about this. So I feel that it all happens at the right time, and that's, if we really believe in it and if we really feel it true in our bodies, which we do, then we can walk through it, we can walk with it despite the rejection, because then we are not looking for validation outside of ourselves.
Exactly. And that's, I feel like, the biggest takeaway, so to speak, with that, with the dark feminine, with that black light. It's like everything is inside you. It wants to distill and transmute all the distortions that we've believed about ourselves, that we've believed about others, everything that we have absorbed and ingested. And then, as you had said before about basically where we do these things to ourselves, where we suppress ourselves, where we cause ourselves our own abandonment, when we abandon ourselves and all the things that we do internally. And it just like comes to make things right,
Yeah,
right?
my yeah, absolutely. And one of my biggest learning was that I was loving in conditions.
Hmm.
And this has been one of the part of the humbling journey, I would say. I was loving in conditions. My family members who kind of disowned me for doing this work because they did not relate to me. So I was like, okay, I'm going to set boundaries, and I'm not going to
Yeah.
talk much about it to them, and I'll have like really solid boundaries. But what I was doing was I was just creating walls and walls and walls.
Mhm.
And I was feeling comfortable only with people who like me, who understand me. And there was not much place for me in my heart for people who don't like me, people who don't understand me, and people who don't agree with me. And this is what the state of the world is right now, that we are just fighting for. We cannot disagree and be together.
Yeah.
We cannot just disagree and still love. And I had to then really, and she kept course correcting, like, hey, come on, come back into alignment. So if that family member is in disagreement with you and does not recognize you in your true essence, does your love for them end right now? And the
Hmm.
answer for me was like, no, 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 I still love them. Okay, so why am I not showing it to them? So why is my love being conditional to
Yes.
them? And that was a big piece of healing all those toxic relationships that I had in my life, which I had really created strong boundaries and blocked my heart, because I was taught that I need to create boundaries to people who don't are not of the same essence, or same
Yeah.
uh, path.
That's such a beautiful and potent teaching. Like to the audience, just to really breathe that in because what we are being taught in New Age spirituality, um, this cutting, I understand that there is a need to cut and there is a need to boundary when we are very volatile and we need to contain ourselves, right? Because oftentimes there is a there is a slow and steady and different pathway for everybody, right? But most people who have not initiated or don't yet have the tools, the first thing they have to do is like protect, right? So that they can contain themselves to do the things. But that's not a place to stay.
No.
Because the more that we can go inside and transform and transmute, we do exactly as you said, the conundrum that is living and
Mhm.
breathing in us and in our societies that we were conditionally loved. And that caused so much harm for us to create masks and pretend we were something we weren't. And so then we perpetuate that out in the world. And so, as you said so eloquently, it is like just because they're different, just because they have their own pathways, just because they are whoever they are, if we are love and that's what we're made of, how to hold that and have that compassion for ourselves and for them, and just like, how do we get along?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. How do we get along? And another piece of integrity in this concept for me was also realizing that I want people to recognize me in my truth, which means that I should give the liberty to everyone else around me to be recognized in their truth as well, regardless of me agreeing or not agreeing. Right.
Yeah. Oh, it's really beautiful.
Mhm, mhm. And this itself is very challenging because it required for me to look at every single character who were close to me in my close inner circle and see how I was responding to them, how I was responding to the ways they were being with me, and where I was putting on this, this woo-woo hat, like, no, I know better,
Yeah.
because.
We've all been there. We've all been there. Yes. I think it's like part of it's like, yeah, I go like this, but it's like, it's part of the journey. It's like these interfaces where this happens. It's like the spiritual ego pumps up and something, and then we transform that to,
Mhm.
it's a big journey.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It humbles you.
Yeah, it really does. It brings you to the knees for sure. For sure. I find that women who work with the dark feminine, like who really do, not like the new age, some of the distortions, which we might talk about, but this this qualitative feeling where it deepens your capacity to hold yourself and then
Mhm.
therefore be able to hold others. Like you can just kind of sense a weathering, like somebody who is able to hold a particular space because they conceptually like, and then down into the roots and body that you can feel that they understand and can hold that. I mean, the capacity to hold space when you are engaged in the realm of the dark feminine, I find is like, it's profound.
Yeah.
It's profound for us, and then we become these alchemical containers that are then able to hold the darkest of the dark. I mean, like the pain,
Mm.
the the violence, we can hold so much because of that unconditional love you're speaking about.
Yes, yes, and it does really take practice, and I really want to share this with everyone listening that it happens in increments. Like it
Yes.
all adds up. It all adds up. It was never like I woke up and I understood this. It was all small steps, and it all adds up. Nothing goes to waste. And through this also, what I realized another missing piece was about my own validation of my own identity. So now I was not, I could look at the disagreement and look at all the things that are told to me which I feel is not true, but not respond in a way to be validated.
Yeah. Like just know what you know and be who you are.
Yeah, yeah, when you are course correcting yourself and have this really intimate relationship with your own self, then it doesn't really matter if people don't get you.
Yeah. It's huge.
Mhm,
I
mhm.
love that you said that it happens in increments because it is a journey that we will be walking for the rest of our embodiment. Like as long as we're in this body, it's going to continuously soften us, deepen us, And we're going to continue diving for treasures as long as we're here, and then learning how to undo, sort of unlearn what we've learned and be like, oh, there's more freedom, like consistent liberation, but it's all happening inside. It's not because you're waiting for somebody else to free you. It's not because you're waiting for somebody else to make you rich or give you money. Like it's just literally from the essence of you just being alive.
Mm.
The
Yeah.
conditions don't matter at all anymore. It's like the jig is up, the game is over. It's
Mhm.
like literally it's such an internal and infinite experience, and that just keeps moving over and over again, and we undo and we drop in.
Yeah. It also stops this chase to fix things.
Yeah.
Like you said, the treasures, we keep discovering treasures. I was speaking to you earlier that I spent the last 4 years in India, and I was also meeting quite a few mystics there and learning the traditional stuff, which you don't find online. And and their ways are really different. And it kind of hit me when we were talking about healing, because what I have noticed, that we have a very masculine approach to healing, and that there has to be a start and an end point, that there has to be these 5 steps, and then we reach this healing. But and then we get to the 5 steps, and then we realize, like, oh no, but now I have to heal something else, now climb the next 5 steps. And so what I learned from them, and it was very profoundly said, and if I can paraphrase it, something like healing is not a 5 steps journey, but healing is life. It's a way of being. So you don't just heal in particular order. Every day we live in alignment with our heart, healing occurs.
Yeah.
Every moment healing occurs. So healing is not a destination, it's a way of lifestyle. And
Mm.
it's a way, when we look at that flower and it looks so beautiful and it opens our heart, we touched healing, the healing energy inside of us. And that was so profound for me, that helped me to reframe how I'm approaching healing, not from a perspective that we're going to get there and we need to get there, rather than just embracing the moments of truth. And then every moments of truth that you live is a healed moment.
I love that. Let me just breathe that in. It's so beautiful. Yeah, I totally know. And what you say, it really deeply touches me as somebody who was such a fixer. Like
Mm.
like when I was just like this need to get pure is what I experienced when I was like really, and still sometimes I have to like check that, right? Because I'm like I have a knowing more of who I am now. So it's like sometimes you're like, ah, the more you awareness you have, right? The more Shiva energy that's present, the more awareness we have, we're like, whoa, suddenly we can see so much more. And we're like, ah. So sometimes I have felt that like, wow, so that continuous journey of like softening and dropping back in. And so, yes, the compulsive fixing is not honoring of us, because we are not here to fix ourselves. We are here to nourish. And that, as you said, that heart connection and that daily practice of living in alignment with that, it is consistently, naturally like, and these are my little bee wings. It like, it's like these little bee wings. It just naturally attunes. Just
Yeah.
consistently is reattuning very gently. Like it doesn't have to be these big cataclysmic experiences. It just happens along the way.
It
You know?
does.
You wake
Yeah.
up one day and you feel a little stronger. You feel a little bit more assertive. You feel a little bit more true, and it builds over time.
Yeah. And it also helps us to acknowledge what we are really feeling, because one of the also big teachings of the dark feminine for me was to honor my dark emotions, to not go into, again, a fixing mood, but first honor and accept myself, that here I am again. Here I am again. And this keeps coming back, but then it doesn't mean bad. It only always shows, again, what needs alignment, but not
Yes.
not the fact that we need to fix ourselves, and all of those dense emotions of my life, I would say all of those anger, those sadness, and all of those resentment, the guilt, the shame, everything that I have felt that were dark emotions have when I have met them, have beautifully transmuted into some beautiful content that I teach.
Yeah.
So it all, there is always this transfiguration opportunity for us through those dark emotions, and I feel that that's why we are given those dark emotions. I mean, all the one of the world's most beautiful art have been created through those dark moments, has
Yeah,
come from there.
I agree. It's very, very beautiful. And we've lived in a culture, I mean, even if I am like, with respect to my mother, if I'm going to visit my mom and I'm grieving or something's coming up for me, as soon as I start to cry, she says, "Oh, please don't cry."
Mhm,
Right?
mhm,
Like this is the culture. And what she means to say is, I really love you and it hurts me when you're hurting, but she doesn't
mhm,
have the language for that, right? So, but instead it's like, just push it down so that way nobody has to deal with it. And
mhm,
I'm like, I have to explain, no, can you just hold space for this or no? And this is the dialogue. And then she'll be like, okay. But we know that, and this is also, it's just such a beautiful thing to be in practice with our families of origin. And that's a whole
mhm.
other topic and in right
Yes.
in different ways. Um, so yeah, it is the whole experience is so humbling. We just become undone.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, yeah. And all those, those dark goddesses, those dark archetypes that we have, those Sekhmet and Lilith and Kali, and there's so many, Mary Magdalene as well. They all mirror us back our dark emotions so that we can see more of ourselves.
Yes.
And that's why I really like to invite women into places where these things can be mirrored back to you in such ways that you feel safe, rather than going to that spouse or child, or or someone in the family who doesn't get that,
Yeah.
and then complaining that nobody gets me and I'm
Yeah.
all alone.
Totally. And also, I think it's so beautiful that it just comes back to, again, it's our experience. It's our creation. Accepting like this when I say responsibility, I don't mean like it's your responsibility. I mean like being responsible to respond to the environment inside of ourselves, which we weren't taught how to do that. So all of these women, including us, are learning for the first time what does it look like to like go into these places of discomfort and discontent and face all of these facets of ourselves and make them whole.
Mm.
Yeah, just like really make them whole, make ourselves whole. And that's not, the doctor's not going to do that. The external, your parents are not responsible to do that. It's an inward journey of reconciling.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, underline inward journey.
Yeah, exactly. Inward journey. And for me, I love to see like one, Mary Magdalene has been such a profound presence planetary wise. Like her work is like this time around is like, wow, that, Christos Sophia, that super powerful divine that she's bringing through, that she's holding collectively is so profound. And as you mentioned, all these other divine dark goddesses, it's like amazing to me how they approach us too, right? Because you might be working with somebody I'm not working with, and it's like particular angles of recognition and who we've been before and what needs to, the specific angles that they bring that each one of us needs at any given time, right? Today for you, it could be Mary Magdalene. Next week, it could be Sekhmet, but there's a profoundly distinct energy that's different in each one of them that you or I need to cultivate from that relationship and that understanding with them. It's so miraculous.
It is. It comes to us at the right time,
Yeah.
and I love that. And that's why it bothers me at times when I see those distortions. And I think we've touched base on that before. Those distortions we see about the dark feminine, and how it has been kind of distorted into something that is around seduction and power over, and gothic makeup. And
Yeah.
it really surprises me, and it kind of also disheartens me in a way, because I have seen this happening to the word women's empowerment in the past, and then to the word femininity, and to the word goddess, and now it's the dark feminine. So there are patterns that we get to see if we are in this work for some time. And it's really interesting because it's all about doing the inner work, and it's so far from what is available. And that breaks my heart, because we that's not what I would wish for women to meet with when they want to work with the dark feminine.
Agreed. Agreed. I understand exactly what you're pointing to. And yeah, I think we're always going to come up and see that polarity, right? That we're going to see, the wellspring and the richness, and then we're going to see the iconic distortions that also get pulled up. It's like now the dark goddess is here, so suddenly somebody's into BDSM, and that the dark goddess is channeling that through them. And you're like, no, that's not the goddess. That's a shadow that's coming up to be nurtured, healed, all the things, but that's not her. She
Yeah.
doesn't she doesn't ignite us to perform and act out in ways we do that to ourselves. Right. The unconscious inside of us, the shadows, we give them room and they start to perpetuate and play in our lives, but that's not her. That's not what Shakti does.
Yeah.
It's what
Exactly.
it's what the unhealed ego structures, when they are not fully configured, they present in the external reality all the suppression. They decide that instead of suppressing it inside, they're going to play that outside in their lives as a form of empowerment. And maybe that's true to a certain degree, that someone can find empowerment eventually, but
Mm-hmm.
at that moment, and then bringing other women into that work, believing that, in good faith, that this is helpful to them. Like if you play out, it's imagine, I like to laugh. I mean, it's not funny, but it is. It's like imagine we all have an inner killer, right? Like
Funny.
somebody's really upset, like we're totally hostile inside and we're filled with rage. And that somehow in our empowerment, we decide that it's okay for us because the goddess says so, that we get to go
Yeah.
start harming people. And so it's like a much bigger scale of kind of looking at some of the distortions in the way that we are using the dark feminine to give us a license,
Mm-hmm.
act really badly. And yeah, and distort her name again, just like we did to Jesus, just like we did. So it's like the transmutation hasn't fully alchemized in our bodies, and we're presenting it out to the world like to be in real power, this is the way to do it. And that's
Yeah.
not her way, and I do not consent to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I do not consent to that too, and that's what I see on social media mostly, around dark feminine. And there are posts around how to get everything from your man.
Yeah.
Use your dark feminine energy. Use your dark feminine energy to get over any man, to seduce any man.
Yep. To get rich, I mean, like,
Yeah,
get,
yeah.
get,
Like,
make it,
does it really
make
work? I
six
sometimes
figures.
wonder.
Make six figures this month with the dark goddess on your side. It's like, it's like this prostitution that we have done at a soul level that continues to extricate itself externally. And just to say for that, I just want to say that I understand it and I love those women. And I can understand that when you're in this, how it can be so overwhelming and confusing. But let's just be aware. I mean, like there is clarity and there is distortion. And so this journey of like, it's it's a big deal. And PS, also knocking on wood and saying that those people that show us those shadows are also in service at some level because they're showing us what has happened in
Yeah, this
humanity, right? They're showing us the consciousness of what's going on, full spectrum.
full
And
spectrum. Yeah.
yeah, and so we get to attune and be like, oh, I have resistance to that. Where is it coming from? Have I embraced my own sexuality? Am I also just seeing distortion? And that's crazy. Like, the all of it. Everything is for us to infer within when you see it outside.
That is so true. And to be really honest, I wasn't even aware of this thing happening on socials. I wasn't aware of it at all. And I got a couple of clients who women who had worked with them with these concept of distortions, and then they came to me saying that I found you and I want to work with you because this does not feel right. This made me do some things that I was not willing to do, and that's when I was like, what is going on in this world? Let me check some social media here, because I was so oblivious to all these things. And that's when I realized, and that's what I love, that you will eventually find out if it is not for you.
Yes, exactly, exactly. And it will just be another thing to have more compassion for on the
Mm.
journey, right? Like, because we've all been a part of things and done things that we later in hindsight would be like, wow, who did that? Like, who and me,
Yeah,
right? Like our whole lives are kind of a story of that. Once you know better, you do better.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's the whole thing is really, really fascinating. There's so
Mm-hmm.
much, there's so much here.
There's so
Yeah,
much. Mm.
yeah. So as we're in this like moving into this autumn phase, those that are listening, oh, I mean, just think about the how it starts to get colder and how you're more under blankets and drinking teas and you're there's more candlelight, like there's more nourishing from within. And how can we nourish ourselves? And I mean, I already started, especially with Navaratri coming. There's the 9 days of the goddess is coming in the, as you know, the Indian Vedic traditions. And it's like these times that we're really called in and called down. And I wanted to just say what my heart wants to say is call down to our knees so that we can stand up straight. But first we have to get down in prayer and make, pay homage and make things right inside of ourselves. So in doing that, she's so important and necessary. So thank you so much for what you are bringing to these women. It's beautiful to have a guide to hold your hand that like has touched it before and knows the terrain. It's like what we wanted when we were little girls. You know what I
Yes.
mean? And now we're women, and there's so much healing that comes in that state of like, I don't know it all, but I got you. And like, so let's look in this terrain together and bring spiritual practice that's in integrity and like support you in a way that's divine for you, not how I did it, but how she's going to guide you and how you're going to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a level of spiritual maturity that we are called into, and especially going into these times of the year, the darker times. I feel that it's more alive and allowed inside our bodies. And this is what my invitation for women is, to really listen what you're called to do in this new season of your life, like what shifts you're called to make, what pauses you're called to make.
Mm.
And because with every all of it, a desire comes through, some fears come through, and this is all for us to feel and understand, rather than just keep going on, just going by the days. We are called to really look into what is wanting to emerge from us. And the dark feminine is there, is she is really alive. This is her season.
This is her season. It's the best season. It's also my birthday season, so I'm like, I love it. It's like, I mean, yeah, it's just an incredibly profound time. So thank you so much. I'm gonna put the links below, but for anybody who wants to work with you, Jonita is an incredible guide, and so I'll put all the information below. Is there anything, any advice or anything that you feel like you want to end with to share with our audience? Anything that.
I think we spoke about everything. I just want us, all of us, including me, you, to really, 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 really honor what is emerging in this season, because I feel that this is going to be really important for the next phase of our life. And I think what is in store for us, I think this is crucial time. I feel the potency of it.
Yeah.
I don't really know how to bring much more words to it, but I know that many, many women are called to feel into this new emergence, and it's literally like a new year starting right now for all of us, and I'm praying and wishing for all of us.
Mm. Thank you. I love that. Thank you so much to our listeners. I know that this is going to be nourishing for you because I feel so deeply nourished just from engaging in the conversation. So thank you for being with us today, and we will see you again. Ciao for now, everybody.
Namaste.